Welcome back to Exposure Stories. For nearly 30 years, Suge Knight has remained one of the most important and mysterious figures connected to Tupac Shakur's murder. He was behind the wheel that night, sitting only feet away when gunfire tore through the BMW. Knight was wounded, while Tupac suffered multiple gunshot wounds. Yet through decades of investigations and speculation, Knight largely refused to identify the person he believed was responsible. Now, with Dwayne "Kef D" Davis facing trial, Knight has spoken from prison again, reigniting questions surrounding one of music history's most famous murders. Knight is serving a lengthy prison sentence in California after being convicted in the 2015 death of Terry Carter. He has little reason to cooperate with prosecutors, and he has made clear that he does not intend to become a conventional witness. In an ABC News interview, Knight warned that anyone who tries to force him into court could face consequences. He may be listed as a possible witness, but appearing in court and actually giving useful testimony are two very different things. His position comes from the loyalty he has always claimed to have toward Tupac and from the street code that shaped his worldview. Knight has argued that testifying against someone can be worse than killing them because the consequences follow that person forever. That philosophy helps explain why he has spent decades refusing to publicly identify the shooter, even though he was the closest surviving witness to the attack. On September 7, 1996, Las Vegas was packed with celebrities and fight fans because Mike Tyson was facing Bruce Seldon at the MGM Grand. Tupac and Knight attended the fight together. After Tyson's victory, a confrontation involving Tupac and Orlando "Baby" Lane Anderson, a member of the Southside Compton Crips, changed the course of the night. Anderson had previously been accused of taking a death row-related medallion from an associate. When Tupac and his group spotted him at the MGM Grand, tensions quickly exploded into a physical fight. Security cameras captured the confrontation. Later, investigators would view that incident as a possible motive for what happened hours afterward. Tupac and Knight eventually left the casino and headed toward Club 662, Knight's Las Vegas nightclub. Tupac was riding in a black BMW 750IL with Knight driving. A convoy of vehicles traveled through the city, and for a short time the earlier confrontation seemed to be over. Then a white Cadillac pulled alongside the BMW near East Flamingo Road and Koval Lane. Gunfire erupted. Several shots struck the passenger side of the BMW. Tupac was hit multiple times, while Knight suffered a head injury from fragments. Despite his own wounds, Knight continued driving with Tupac critically injured beside him. Tupac was taken for medical treatment, but his injuries were devastating. On September 13, 6 days after the shooting, he died at just 25 years old. The investigation quickly became one of the most frustrating murder cases in America. The alleged weapon was never recovered. The white Cadillac disappeared. Orlando Anderson, who investigators had long connected to the case, was killed in an unrelated shooting in Compton in 1998. Key witnesses disappeared or refused to cooperate, and the case remained unsolved for decades. Then Dwayne "Kef D" Davis became the central figure. Davis, Anderson's uncle and a former Southside Compton gang figure, repeatedly discussed the shooting in public. He appeared in interviews and documentaries and eventually co-authored the memoir, Compton Street Legend. In those accounts, he described his presence around the events surrounding Tupac's death. His public statements eventually became some of the most important evidence prosecutors could use. In September 2023, Las Vegas police arrested Davis and charged him with murder with the use of a deadly weapon. He pleaded not guilty. His defense has challenged the prosecution's interpretation of his past statements and has argued that parts of the memoir were written by his co-author rather than directly by Davis. But prosecutors also have a recorded jailhouse conversation. After his arrest, Davis made a phone call discussing the memoir. Because jail calls are recorded, the conversation was preserved. Prosecutors say the recording could contradict Davis's later claims that the book was largely fiction. The call is important because it gives prosecutors another way to argue that Davis was not simply repeating a story invented by somebody else. Knight has now attacked the defense strategy in his own blunt way. He has suggested that Davis spent years talking about the murder, placing himself near the events, and telling his version of what happened. Now, with a jury watching, he is attempting to distance himself from those same words. But the case contains another controversial name, Sean "Diddy" Combs. For years, allegations have circulated about a possible connection between Combs and the violence surrounding Tupac. Davis previously made claims to investigators about an alleged financial motive involving Combs. Those claims remain allegations. Combs has denied involvement, and he has never been charged in Tupac's murder. That distinction matters. Claims made by witnesses or suspects are not automatically facts, and allegations about Combs have never been established in court. Still, the subject continues to attract attention because of the intense rivalry between Death Row Records and Bad Boy Records during the 1990s. Knight has continued to raise questions about the larger motive behind Tupac's killing. But even while discussing the case, he has maintained his refusal to identify the shooter himself. He appears to believe that Davis has already provided enough information through his own statements and that the justice system should rely on those words rather than forcing Knight to break his personal code. That is what makes Knight's latest comments so striking. He is not saying that he forgot what happened. His statements suggest the opposite. He remembers the night, remembers Tupac, and has his own beliefs about what happened. But he remains unwilling to sit in a witness chair and point a finger at another person. For Knight, the issue is loyalty. Tupac has remained part of his life for 3 decades. Knight recently spoke about his teenage son and noted that younger people still listen to Tupac, talk about him, and admire his music. The rapper's influence has survived long after his death, and his murder remains one of the defining mysteries of hip-hop. The Davis trial could finally establish a legal version of what happened that night. But even a conviction may not answer every question. There is still no recovered murder weapon. There is no surviving shooter publicly accepting responsibility. There is limited physical evidence compared with modern homicide cases. And the man who was sitting beside Tupac when the bullets were fired remains unwilling to provide the testimony many people have waited decades to hear. Suge Knight's message from prison is therefore not a confession. It is a warning and a statement of principle. He says he remembers, he has opinions about what happened, and he refuses to compromise the code he has chosen to follow. Whether that silence protects Tupac's memory or prevents the complete truth from ever becoming known remains impossible to say. For now, the murder of Tupac Shakur continues to sit at the intersection of music, gang history, loyalty, revenge, and unanswered questions. The trial of Kef D. Davis may bring a measure of accountability, but it may not explain every person, motive, or secret connected to that night. And somewhere inside a California prison, Suge Knight remains one of the few people who was there when the shooting happened. For 30 years, he has chosen silence. Now he has spoken again, but only enough to remind everyone that there are still parts of that night he refuses to reveal. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.